I really don't want to reply to people who are never going to reply to me whatsoever, no matter what. But I'm going to, not this particular person I'm replying to. The video wasn't that bad. I mean, he brought up a lot of good points and some really bad points, and clusterfuck in certain areas again. But first of all, the good sides. And this is about the PlayStation 4. I, I'm generally happy with the PlayStation 4 specs as well. The 8 gigabytes of RAM is nice, especially GDDR5 RAM, which is quite fast and much more powerful. Of course, the only real reason why Sony went with it is because they use XDR RAM in their PlayStation 3. But DDR RAM ended up just killing PlayStation. Or the XDR RAM. And it's good for something that, you know, handles mainly the garbage files and then later dumps them once they're no longer in use when, power down and stuff like that. Or just, quit the game or any other application because that's what RAM's supposed to do. Even though that most games only take up 125 megabytes of RAM right now, it's a little overkill in my opinion. It future proofs it, but by the time the 8 gigabytes of RAM becomes significant, we'll be in a new console age. I mean, do I think the Nintendo Wii U future proofed itself? For a good 3 years, maybe. But mostly it's exclusives. Of course, the PS4 is going to be using x86 architecture, 64-bit, which is good. And of course, we use using PowerPC, and the PowerPC has had its plenty shares of games, and it's easy to convert between PowerPC and x86. But that wasn't thanks to part to Apple, because Apple had the PowerPC Max, and thanks to certain converting companies like Aspire, Feral Entertainment, and all these other people who wanted to port all these games to the Max back then, they were the ones that became significant for putting games on Xbox 360 and Wii U, and had an incredibly hard ass time on PlayStation 3. So if you want to thank your Xbox 3, I mean, if you want to thank the people who helped make Xbox 360 and the Wii possible, go thank Apple for that. Of course, the Xbox 720 rumors are going two ways. Either they're going to go with an Intel processor or they're going to stick with the PowerPC processor. I've heard rumors on both sides on that one. But the thing is that both the PS4 and the Wii U are basically using GPUs, mainly because the CPU and the GPU are all going to both be on the same diecast. And both of their CPUs are pretty fucking weak with pretty shitty clock speed. But that's the magic of the GPU because it takes physics and the particles and removes it from the CPU and puts it on the GPU where it was supposed to be the whole fucking time. And if you think that that's a bad idea, then throw away your Xbox 360s and your PCs, right? And even your Macs. Because A, it's going in the Xbox 720. The 360 kind of had a half written one that was taken from the Coda project from well, I can't pronounce their names. NVIDIA. NVIDIA, I mean. Bleh. So goes the English language. And yes, I know that the Xbox 360 was using an I mean ATI, which is now AMD, but the CPU was, a Frankenstein. Basically, it was a PowerPC processor with some cell parts just jabbed in there, and it was not a very good patch up job. In fact, most of the cell processor parts that was in the Xbox 360's processor was just not used, and they just used the PowerPC parts. Don't ask me why, but it was just a mess. but the games looked good anyways because it was mostly a PowerPC processor. And using a half-baked GPU in their Xbox 360s was just an easier way of using, you know, low-end CPU with a high-end GPU. But it doesn't matter because the GPU is in DirectX 11 and in OpenGL 4.0, as I stated it 100 times. So if Sony's going to use a weak ass CPU with a strong ass GPU, the only way to do it is with the GPU. Just that's it. And if you say no, they're not, then it's like basically driving around in a fuel efficient car with a tank that's only at 1%. It'll save on gas, but yeah, good luck on driving around. Basically, the tank's about the size of a normal glass, wine glass. But what surprises me the most is how everybody, and I mean everybody, has forgotten what really killed the PlayStation 3. I mean, there were a few things, three basic things. The minor one, the one of the actually four, but one of the minor ones was the controller, but it was passable. It worked on the PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, and of course, it didn't have DualShock when it launched. But the other minor problem was that its launch library was shitty. Let me give you an example. The lowest rated game was Gundam Crossfire, and their highest rated one was the Resistance game, which started the Resistance franchise, which is now dead. I mean, just look up both the Resistance gang review and the Gundam Crossfire review, and especially by XPlay, you'll see what I mean. But the biggest reason, and the reason that hurt it the most, was not the hardware. I mean, yeah, it was hard for developers to program for, but it worked for PlayStation 1 and it worked for PlayStation 2. Why didn't it work for PlayStation 3? Simple answer. It was this.
And the 60 gigabyte PlayStation 3 for $599 US dollars, $659 Canadian.
Getting up there and announcing a $599 price tag, basically making it at $600, was a bad fucking idea. And that's why I'm holding back on the PlayStation 4 right now, because I want to check what the price is going to be. But I will say this. Given what I've seen in there, it looks like Sony has learned their lesson. I mean, from the Sony press conference for the PS4, it looks like Sony has learned their lesson, and that we may end up getting a good price point for the PlayStation 4. And if that does happen, I will get a PlayStation 4 because good hardware mixed with a good price, that's a good thing. I mean, I would have gotten a PlayStation 3 if it was at a better price, but and by the time they started lowering the price and figuring out that they've cluster fucked themselves over at Sony, there was really no point because the PlayStation 3 was not exactly all that far away, and there's just no point in getting a PlayStation 4 anymore. And now that it's coming out, and it may not, and it's not going to have backwards compatibility for obvious reasons. What's the point of getting a PlayStation 3 now, anyways? I pretty much think that most of the hardware they announced, especially the CPU and GPU, it's pretty much a done deal. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, the tech looks good, even though I haven't seen the box for whatever reason, and I'm hoping on a good price. I am hoping at least. I just don't want another repeat of $5.99. But we'll see. See ya.